Hello, it's Tash here, and welcome to the How to Renovate podcast. Today, it is an absolute pleasure to have Emma Morton-Turner on the podcast. Emma is a fellow podcaster, an interior stylist, and a writer for over 20 years. She's styled home and interiors magazine photo shoots, company brochures, press launches, and she also writes features for interiors magazines. And as if that's not enough, Emma is also the founder of InsideStylists, which is a platform for other interior stylists, writers, assistants, and photographers to be found. Emma has worked on an absolutely huge range of interiors magazines like Ideal Home, House Beautiful, Style at Home, Country Homes and Interiors, and Elle Decoration, to name but a few. But today, I want to talk to Emma and steal her expertise on how we can bring personality and that magazine-worthy style into our own homes. Because I find that after carrying out a messy renovation, it is the absolute cherry on top to enjoy the styling process and make your house your home by adding those fun and personal things to bring it all together. A very warm welcome to you, Emma Morton-Turner, to the How to Renovate podcast. I'm so excited to talk to you because there's so many questions I want to ask about how we can bring that styling into our homes. So tell us a little bit firstly about yourself, about your family and your own home, and how you got into interior styling.
Okay, so thank you for having me. I'm very honoured to be here. So I have been an interior stylist for something like 25 years, which sounds far too long because I think I'm only 21. And I'm basically, well, I became an interior stylist and worked on magazines initially. I did work experience for 6 months and worked my way around what was then called IPC Media. I did work experience on living, etc., country homes and interiors, homes and gardens. I did some time on essentials, on family circle, on women. I did so much work experience.
Wow.
The only reason I could afford to do that was because I told the bank I was buying a car. I got a £4,000 loan, and I gave myself 6 months, which back then was the way you got into magazines. It's slightly different now because there are more freelancers now. But got my first job on a magazine. That magazine was called Homes and Ideas. It was like a baby sister version of Ideal Home.
Okay.
That closed after 18 months, and I then got asked to join the team at Woman and Home because I'd made friends with the home editor who was there. I worked there for what felt like forever, actually. I was there a really long time. I went in as the assistant stylist, and then I got made home editor after having my first daughter, then had my second daughter. I worked there for 5 years as the home editor. And then I took that scary leap into the editor's office to say I was going to go freelance. And they always say why, because when you're a stylist, you get to do lots of fun jobs and you get to do all the styling and the creative side of it. And the higher up you go, the less creative kind of part of the magazine you do. You don't do as much styling, you're more managing. And I didn't want to do that. So I went freelance, and my reasoning was I wanted to do something different because I was at Woman Home 9 years. So I did the same Christmas for 9 years. I did the same Easter for 9 years. And although we got to do lots of different things, it was the same style, the same market, the same audience. So going freelance opened up a whole world, because when you're freelance, you can do TV and books and commercial, and you can still do magazines, but you can do living, etc. one week, and you can do Women's Weekly the next.
Yes.
And that's really why I went freelance.
All kind of
My
creativity and variety.
Exactly. And styling can be used in so many different guises. It's quite insane how widespread styling kind of can take you, really.
Yes.
I live in southeast London in an end of terrace 1930s house that needs a lot of work doing to it. I could probably listen to your podcast many times over in the time it would take me to touch up all those little cracks and scuffed paints.
Oh,
I am When you're an interior stylist, especially when you're freelance, you tend to have a lot of boxes and props and furniture coming in and out. So my poor house gets a lot of bashing and doesn't get as much attention as it probably deserves, or definitely deserves.
oh, for sure. It's oh, that sounds great. And yeah, the job interior stylist just sounds like so much fun. It sounds like such a fun job. And I find that sometimes people mix up stylist and interior designer. Can you perhaps tell us a bit more about the difference between the two?
Yeah, absolutely. I have to say, people do think it sounds very glamorous, and interior stylists who are professional interior stylists laugh about this quite a lot because our job is about 80% logistics. It's about planning, it's about thinking about what products you need. Now, I'm a photographic stylist. I tend to do more shoots for brands. So I might get approached by a company who have new products and they want to shoot a Christmas range. It might be June when they want to do that. So they would come to me with their products. I would say, okay, here's how I think we should shoot it. I would do some drawings. I draw by hand. Some stylists do like techie, like online drawings and stuff, but I've always drawn by hand and no one seems to mind that. I can kind of do it quicker. I like to just sketch and then just change
Quite
what's
nice, actually.
needed. Yeah, it
Mm,
is. It's quite a,
yeah.
yeah, it gives you thinking time and thinking like, well, this vase, how am I going to showcase it to make it look its absolute best? And that's what the brand is doing. They're hiring me as an interior stylist to showcase their product, make sure their product is the hero in the shot. And I'm trained to make sure photos are styled perfectly. So if I'm working for a brand, I make sure the product looks great. If I'm working for a magazine, I'm making sure that the shots I'm doing are very inspirational. And that might come in the way that I've created a setup. Maybe I've styled a shelf in a certain way and it looks very different. People want to recreate that. Or it might be I've included small brands that no one's heard of before and they find someone new, because you only need one piece of inspiration in a magazine to love that magazine. Um, or I might work with, I've worked with quite a few interior designers who hire stylists to come and do their shoots when they want to have photos for their branding, for their social media, for their portfolios. Because I find quite often stylists are trained to see images rather than spaces. We as interior stylists might get a job to do a shoot. So if an interior designer hires me, they might say, right, we've finished this project, could you come next week and shoot it? I then see all the images of what it looks like, that the snaps that they've taken. I can then see what products are needed. I might need an extra vase for a living room, or maybe I'll need a bowl of fruit for the kitchen. I will know exactly what I need to bring to that shoot. I will come in, I will style it, I will shoot it, I will take all my props away with me again. And that process is about a week. What I don't do is design the space and have to deal with, now I mean this with all love and due and all respect, but I
I
don't
know
have to
what you're
deal with,
going to
I think you probably do. I don't have to deal with emotions, because really a brand, although they're very passionate about their products, they're
say.
not going to get upset if I'm not feeling it. I don't have to deal with any personalities really. I'm dealing with clients, and it's not the same as dealing with someone who is doing up their home, that is their home is their castle, as we say in England. It's like, it's everything. And I know from talking to interior designers, I know a lot of interior designers, these projects can take a really long time. So the difference I'd say between an interior stylist and an interior designer is that a designer comes in and will take a space and transform it. They will think about the walls and the decorative elements. They'll think about the furniture. What a stylist does is they come in and they put the finishing touches on to make sure that that home feels really warm and welcoming, or very minimalist. It could be absolutely anything. And I also think that interior designers, the ones I know that are really successful, have a very clear like look. People come to them for their aesthetic. I always say Kelly Hoppen is a perfect example. If you like really bright colours, you're not going to Kelly Hoppen, you're going to Sophie Robinson. You are known for your brand and your styling. As an interior style, your design style. As an interior stylist, I have to be able to do minimalist, I have to be able to do colourful, I have to be able to do high end, high street end, I have to be able to do everything, because I'm being hired for photographic uses. Now that is changing. People are being asked to come in and style houses for people where people live. And I know someone who, one of my stylist friends, he got a job styling for this woman who had this fabulous brand. It was a beauty brand, I think. And they loved what he did so much that they said, could you come and style my Easter table? And he went there and he styled her Easter table. And then she was like, this is great. Can you come back at Christmas and design all my home for Christmas? Because styling for a shoot is the same as styling for a house. So we can do all sorts of things. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think that
Oh,
answers the
brilliant.
question.
What an amazing kind of breakdown of both of them there. That's great. That like makes it really clear, and I can totally vouch on the interior designer part about how long it takes. I'm still working on a project which I think we started 3 years ago, where I'm now going
Wow.
in and doing the styling parts. But I have to say I have had very lovely clients I've worked with, so I haven't had too much personality, or no, I shouldn't say personality. I haven't had too much emotion to deal with, I should say.
Yes.
Um,
I think one of the other things is that it looks very glamorous. So when I say, "Oh, I'm shooting today," I say it so like blasé because I've been doing it for 20 odd years, and everyone in my close, vicinity knows I mean I'm going to take pictures. They don't think I'm off to go to the countryside and shoot grouse. Um, but actually, it's really hard work. I might turn up to a shoot at 9 o'clock, empty a Luton van full of props, furniture, accessories, empty my car. I will then style it all. I will then, you've got to get it all out of the boxes. You've got to style it all. Then at the end of the day, you've got to put it all back again. You've got to make sure all the props that you've borrowed, whether it's from a shop or from a prop hire place, it has to go back to the right place. It's an absolutely massive job. It's very, very exhausting. I mean, I'm on the floor laying carpet. I'm up ladders hanging curtains. It isn't as glamorous as it sounds. It's really hard work. And I love it when the interior designers style their projects and shoot it, and then they go, "I'm shattered. I need a week off to recover." Because it's
it
also,
is exhausting.
it's exhausting.
I've done a few, and I've always thought like it's almost like moving house.
Oh,
Place in
absolutely.
one day sometimes.
Yeah,
The amount of
yeah.
stuff to get there, style and take down and get back again, it is utterly exhausting. I've done it a few times, so yeah, it is really hard work. And you do such a good job. So do you have any advice for us for people styling their own homes? How do you first approach a space? And also, what can we do in our homes to kind of make it more personal to us and bring some of that interior styling into our own homes?
So I think this is a really interesting question because I think that styling and design to a certain extent is very, it's not formulaic. I can't say, right, you should do this, this, and this, and your room will look beautiful because what I love, you might not love. I love collections. I'm a little bit of a maximalist. I love to go hunting for random things and I like to put them all around my home. And if you're a minimalist, you're really not going to get that. So it does depend on different spaces and different kind of design aesthetics. But I would say things, oh, I'm going to sound really cheesy, but you want to make it look so that when you walk into the room, you just go, oh, I love it. I love it. And rearranging accessories, rearranging books, moving art around the house can literally do that. And I'm not talking seasonal. If you want to do seasonal, then good for you. But just it doesn't have to be that. It can literally be I bought a new vase. I don't want to stick it in a cupboard. I'm going to put it on my mantle and I'm going to tweak things from my mantle to make sure it looks good. The way we style, I can kind of give you a couple of I have to think in terms of not photographically because I'm always thinking in sort of a frame. I put my hands up and do a square or a rectangle to make
Cool.
like the frame of an image. I
Yeah.
see my spaces like that. So when we do that, there are some really simple rules, and I'm sure people have heard of these before. But the one that is probably the easiest to do is to group things in threes. The way your eyes take things in, it's very much about the symmetry. If everything is absolutely symmetrical, it's very boring. Your eye can look at it, it can see it's symmetrical, and it just moves on. There's no, I want to look at this in more detail. I want to look further. So
Yeah.
by throwing it off by having odd things,
Mhm.
that really helps. Also, it's kind of like when we do shoots, we layer our shots. So we think in terms of the accessories we use. If we've got that vase on the mantelpiece, we might put some beautiful big hydrangea flowers in the top of this vase. That's quite tall. I probably want to put two more things in that are a little bit lower. I don't want them all to be the same height. I want them to be layered. So maybe something small like a big paperweight on the surface, then maybe a small accessory or a small vase in front of the bigger vase with the hydrangeas in. You're adding layers, and layers count for everything. So I'm talking about a mantle here, but if you're on a bookshelf, you might want to put some books flat and then put an accessory on top of them, and then maybe put some other bits around so it's still feeling like you've got those layers of three. Same with sofas. If everything's dead kind of symmetrical, it's not going to be as inviting. If things are a little bit skew width, maybe you've got three. If you've got four cushions, you might want to put two either side, but then maybe there's a throw and it's off to the side, so that's kind of giving you five elements. So there's your cluster of five.
Uh-huh.
And just kind of zhuzh it. I would say zhuzh it, make it a little bit loose. It doesn't have to be really formal, but then maybe you're hotel chic, so you might want things looking really, really neat, in which case I would fold that throw and lay it over the sofa really neat. and put my cushions in front of each other really smart and kind of very symmetrical, but that throw is still creating kind of, it's breaking up that dead
Yeah,
symmetry.
creating that a kind of uneven numbered element.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Yeah.
3, 5, and so on. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really great. Really lovely tips there. Do you have any more, or shall we move on to the next question?
Um, I'm trying to think of some that aren't actually about taking photos, because I think in terms, like, I see in
Mm,
portrait because I was trained to shoot for a full page of a magazine. So when
yeah,
I look into spaces, I kind of see where I'm looking there. I
yeah,
have a thing. I thought everybody did this, like all stylists did this, but actually it's a bit of an Emma thing. I call it the hug. So if I put my arms out as if I was about to go and hug you, I
yeah,
want someone to look at the space as if that space is hugging you. Are you feeling like you're being welcomed into that space, or is there something that I call a blocker? So, for example, if I'm standing in a living room and I'm looking at a large sofa in front of me, it's under a window, and there are two chairs, like two little occasional chairs, one's on the left of me and one's on the right. That is making a kind of a hug shape. That's almost like a C shape. So you go from the right hand side where you've got a chair, then behind you've got the sofa, then you come back round and you've got the other chair on the left. If
yeah,
you are taking a picture or you're looking at the space and you're walking in, that is going to feel very inviting. If you put a side table next to one of those armchairs, and it feels like, oh, it's going to be difficult to walk into this space now, it's awkward, I'm being blocked by that table, you're not being welcomed in. So that table might need to move further over. You need that opening so that you feel like you can walk through. This is kind of more practical when you're going into a space that you've designed. But in
yeah.
terms of
Flow
photography, we
almost
like to,
in terms
sorry,
of like flow. When we're talking in terms of kind of interior
exactly.
design, is kind of how you feel, or you feel that you can easily walk into a space and
Yeah,
circulate in around it.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. And it's feeling like you're being welcomed into the space. So
Yeah.
when we shoot tables, we're very now I'm going to ruin it for everyone now. But when you look at magazines, quite often when you're looking at a table and it's a full setting, it's very hard to see the detail on the table. But if you want to get so Christmas is a perfect example. If you
Mm.
want to get a feel for what a Christmas room looks like, you want to see the whole dining table, a window, maybe a Christmas tree in the background, and a sideboard. You stand back and you take a picture, you have that whole feeling as you're looking at it. But what happens is the chairs with their back to you are blocking. They're not welcoming you into this table. So what we do is we move them so there's an extra big gap so you can see through to the table. Now we do it to camera so that you can't tell that it's not where it should be, but you would never in a million years notice. But now I've told you, you will notice. But we do that for photography because we want to be able to feel people are being welcomed into this space. If
Yeah.
it's a real room, you're going to have your chairs in the right place because people won't even notice. They're standing higher. When we take
Yeah.
pictures for photography for brands and for companies and for magazines, the camera is very low. It's probably between your shoulder and your elbow. And
Right.
that gives you a feeling. This is a really good tip actually for people who are taking pictures of their own projects. It gives you a sense that you are walking into that space. If we hold the camera up where our head is, we are tilting it down, it
Yeah.
doesn't feel quite the same. So by being lower, you aren't seeing what's on your dining table. We would shoot it there, but then we would come in and we would shoot a detail, maybe a place setting, some table center details and things like that. So you get a feel for the whole space.
Yeah. Oh, such good tips. Such good tips. I love the one about the kind of C shape and welcoming in, because that's, I think, something we can definitely think about doing in real life in our own homes. So I think that's
Yeah.
really fun. Um, so I find that, in my work, that a lot of a lot of us struggle with clutter, and we often feel like we feel a little overwhelmed and even sometimes embarrassed by this, especially when you're having guests over. I once had a client who said she just wants to have people over into her home without constantly apologizing for the state of our house, or having a bit of clutter, or having stuff in the bathroom everywhere. So I always find that kind of well-planned storage, when I'm doing interior design, I always do well-planned storage and add that into the plan. But do you have any kind of other advice or tips that we might use to overcome this feeling of kind of being a little bit embarrassed about our own homes?
Yeah, so this is very interesting, because actually I think the people that come to your homes really don't care.
You're
They
probably
are so excited to see you. Yeah, they're like, they might go away and think, "Oh my God, look at the pile of crap on that table." But at the end of the day, they wanted to come and see you, and they've come to see you, and it's not their house. They don't live the way you live, and if they don't like it, then that's tough. But the answer to your question is definitely about storage, and I know quite a lot of, I mean, new build houses now are much smaller than they've ever been. So
Mm,
storage is key, but sometimes there just isn't space. So I'm
mm,
going to put my ADHD head on, because I was diagnosed when I was 42, so nearly 10 years ago,
wow.
and I I just realised that things need systems, and actually systems are just the key to life. And I've got it down to a fine art now, because when I first realised this, like, people with ADHD very much lose things a lot. It's a real problem, and we get really annoyed with ourselves. It's like, I just had my keys. Where have I put them? So
Right.
I put my keys in the drawer. I do not move more than 2 steps into my house without my keys going into a drawer. They're in the
Right.
drawer, they're nice and safe, they're always there. The dog walking coat, the dog bag, the lead all go on the peg straight away. I know where they are all the time.
Mhm.
Underneath the key drawer, there's a drawer for poo bags. It's always there. That's where they live. If I need tape, we've got a craft cupboard in the kitchen. The tape always goes into that cupboard. It is a case of getting into the habit of not putting things down, putting them away. And I did a feature on a decluttering expert. I don't think she does it anymore, because we're talking about 15 years ago.
Right.
And she told me that. She said, don't put it down, put it away. And she was talking about when you peel the top off a milk bottle and you've got that little tab, don't put it down on the surface, just
Yeah.
put it straight in the bin. And if you do that, and then at the same time, when you finish the milk bottle, don't put it on the side to clean later and put it in the recycle bin, do
Yeah.
it straight away, because those split seconds
Yep.
just clear your surfaces. So that would probably be my top tip. When it comes to things like paperwork, this is something I'm trying to teach my kids. My kids are 18 and nearly 21, and they are starting to get bank statements, even though I keep telling them to just get it online. We don't need envelopes coming through the door with your
Yeah.
statements every month. They don't even open them half
Who
the
needs
time.
real post anymore? It
Oh,
just adds to the
yeah.
stress.
Absolutely. But there is still paperwork that comes through. You know, you get your
Yeah.
statements from the council tax, and some things have to come in paper. You get your pension details and all those sorts of things, all those paperwork bits that you think, oh, I need to file that.
Yeah.
I've got a concertina file. It's in the kitchen. The kitchen is where I open up all the paperwork. It goes straight in the concertina file. And then when that starts to get full, it then gets filed away in a box file where, you know, you've got to keep paperwork. I'm freelance, so I've got to keep paperwork for at least 6 years. There's a system. So I think that the key to being on top of clutter is to create systems. Now, if anyone is listening to this and they're thinking, oh my God, I'm going to do that, just do one at a time. Just
Yeah.
think about, like, when I go for dog walks in the winter, I know that my keys go in my right hand pocket and my lip seal goes in the left. And I put my gloves in the middle pocket, not the big ones on down low, the ones in up the top where it's nice and warm. That level is all it takes. And once that starts working, it has a knock on effect. It's a snowball effect, essentially. It just starts growing. That is great. But I'm saying all this. If you could see my daughter and her floor robe right now, it is insane. It has not rubbed off. So, yeah,
That
I
was
can
going
do
to be
that.
my next question is
Oh,
because
sorry.
I have the same problem. It's like, how do you make everyone else in the house do this without constantly seeming like a nag? Because I feel like I'm constantly asking people, because I 100% agree with you about just doing things, like you said, putting the milk bottle in the bin and just doing things when you're doing them so you don't have to go back and redo it afterwards and give yourself more
Yeah,
work. But yeah, that
yeah,
that challenge of making everyone else in the house do the same thing. But I absolutely love that idea of systems, and I think that is definitely something people can take away. And as you say, just start with one small thing, and then it kind of grows and grows. So I
yeah.
love
The
that.
kids, the kids thing, I learned this really hard. I mean, if you're an interior designer listening, do you let your kids have their rooms how they want them? Or do you say this wallpaper or this color? You give them options so they can choose what they want. There comes a point where they really want to express themselves. I have very creative kids. I'm in a creative job. My husband is not. And for a really long time, I would only let my daughter have posters on her wall if she put them in frames. It got to a point where she was desperate to express herself. And I thought, I'm going to have to let her do her own thing. So we
Yeah.
had our loft done. We moved into the loft, and our oldest moved into our old bedroom. And I said, what do you want? We'll paint it however you want. And we painted it. It was beautiful. And then about a year later, she said, I want to paint this main empty wall with no wardrobes or no bed. I want to paint it black. And I was like, okay. And I thought, do you know what? It's really not fair for me to curb this creativity. She wants to paint it with blackboard paint so she could draw on the wall. And I thought, okay, we're just going to have to put a big mat on the floor to catch the chalk, and I have to get over myself.
Roll with it.
And I did. And what happened was she became absolutely fascinated with vintage furniture, and she's there is not an inch of space on her walls. I think she's got about 8 vintage mirrors all over that black wall now.
Oh.
And she's got she did visual art and design at the Brit School, and she would say, can you look out for impressionist books for me, please? So I would find these massive coffee table books with impressionist art on them. She would cut out all the pictures, and she's made her own wallpaper over the whole room. It's really crazy. I mean, she's got a branch going the whole width of the room that sits on the picture rail, and at one point she had 48 plants. She's away at uni now. It's probably about
incredible. I'd love to see a photo of her bedroom.
I can't even get in there right now. But the thing is, I didn't want to stop her expressing herself. And there was a point where I was like, I really would be frustrated if that was me, and as at her age when she was 16, 17, whatever it was. And it's turned into she's now she's now at uni doing theatre studies. She's actually doing tech, but she went in to do scenic art. So you don't know where this creative outlet can take them. My my other daughter, polar opposite, wanted everything new, wanted IKEA white furniture everywhere, which is so not my thing. I had to really pull in for that. But her room is now pink, and we are about to redo it, and she wants like vintage tea rose wallpaper, like proper Laura Ashley styling. She's 18, and she's proper girly. So their bedrooms are completely different, but they are very well. My oldest daughter, with the wallpaper made from paintings, is very full, so it's quite cluttered. My other daughter is just messy. My other daughter is my ADHD daughter, proper mess. I've just decided, and I think this is probably a little bit because of the pandemic, that was their space. They went in, they tidied up their rooms when they realized they weren't going back to school, because that was their safe space, and they tidied up their rooms. And I don't know if they've been tidy since. I have just let them do their own thing, because actually I will go in every now and again and say, please, this is really bad. But at the end of the day, I've given them space to do that. I know this is not popular, but I have just had to let them close the door on their room and not look at it. Also, I'm the one that makes all the mess in our house. I'm the one who piles props up in the living room and has furniture painted on the kitchen table. So I really can't really speak, but yeah, it is very difficult.
Great to give them, my daughters are quite young still, but one's just about to be 12, and we are definitely getting into that stage where she wants to rip down her beautiful coal and sun black and white trees wallpaper with the gold stars and just paint it, probably pink, I'm not sure, but I will have to let go and just let her do that at some stage. So I totally get that. But
The thing is, we are surrounding them with paint charts and wallpapers and interiors this and interiors that. How can so much more is taught than taught? I really believe that.
yeah,
We're feeding this interest sort of thing. So
exactly.
we've kind of done it to them. But I do, my goodness, Cole and Son, that is hurting my heart a little bit.
I know. I keep just going, oh, maybe just a few more months, and then I'll go in there and see a tiny little bit falling off the wall.
Oh, no.
Right at the join, where you join the two together, a little bit has got hold of and peeled off little by little. So we will have to replace that at some stage, or just remove it completely. But
Yeah.
we all love like just kind of peering into other people's kind of perfect homes and in magazines and on social media, but on the surface anyway, because I know, like you say, the chaos that happens behind the scenes on photo shoots. But I mean, this is quite similar to my last question, but are there kind of just little things we can steal from those photo shoots and bring into our own homes to make them just feel a little bit more pulled together and considered? Um, I think when I give styling advice, I always try and say, well, you can style it as much as you want, but it has to feel kind of personal to you, and it has to reflect who you are. And I love saying, oh, you know, include items from your heritage or from your travels to kind of make it a little bit more personal. But I wondered if there's kind of anything you wanted to add to that.
I think you've hit the nail on the head there. I think it's really important to stay authentic to yourself. And like, I don't like having loads of photos around our house. I don't think we've got any downstairs. We've got one of our girls downstairs, but everything else is in our bedroom. I feel like I don't want personal photos everywhere, which is just a completely personal thing. But most people do. Most people do like to have photos and reminders and loved ones around them. And it's really important that, like, if I was to say to someone, don't put pictures around, they'd be like, oh, but it's my mum or my gran or my dog or whatever it is. And I
So,
think that's exactly right. I love coloured glass. I love collecting it. And I've got a reasonably unhealthy collection of ceramic swans at the moment,
oh,
which I've been sneaking them into the house one at a time. Just they're just appearing on the
yeah.
window ledge and on the shelf, and so that my husband doesn't notice that there's about 10. But
Wow.
that probably would have most people would be like, oh my goodness, are we in the 1980s? What on earth? I just get little things like that. I think that when you find something that you love, so I've always loved coloured glass. I don't think I'll ever get bored of that, especially like fat Murano sort of blues and greens or just really heavy colours. I love that. But I would find little collections of those and put them, because if that is giving me joy, just adding things like that to my home would make me feel really, really good. It would feel like my space is very personal to me. And I think that's what people want, is they don't want their house to look like something that's cut out of a next catalogue. They want something that's a bit next and a bit Prada and a bit this and a bit that, a bit vintage, a bit new, but they want it to be very much their style. So I would say exactly what you said. Make sure you stay authentic. When we do shoots, what we try and say is make it feel real. So if we were doing a shoot, so for example, if someone is doing a shot for Instagram that they want to include of a space, their space or a space they've designed, we always say put something living. So it might be a plant, it might be flowers, it could be a bowl of fruit, it could be a pet. Things like that coming in always make a
Mm,
space feel like it's a real space, because what you don't want is for it to feel really stiff and not welcoming. It's kind of, the hug is all about welcoming in.
yes.
It's that you want it to be really, just really relaxed, and like you want to go and sit on that sofa. You're not frightened to touch it because it looks like a museum piece.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
think that's it. It's a feeling rather than a look, I think.
Exactly. I think young people, or what I think about, when people come around to my own home, I always love when they say, people always say this, they go, "Oh, I feel so calm here." Like, I feel like
Mm.
they could just feel like they can sit and relax and chat. And I don't know exactly why. Maybe it's because I don't have loads of clutter and I don't have loads of things around generally, except the things that I really love and things from my travels or whatever. But I think it's just that feeling again, we keep saying, of just people kind of coming in, feeling welcome, feeling like they can linger a bit and not feel stiff. I think, it's all about that. That's what our homes should be all about. Um,
That's really funny because we had my daughter had a birthday party for her 18th, but she also had a party at New Year's, and they all ended up in the garden on both occasions. And people, all her friends, go, "I love your house. It's really interesting." And I was like, "Is that like when you don't fancy someone, and instead of saying, oh, they were beautiful, you go, they were interesting?" But it's because I have quite an eclectic style. I do like a lot of vintage. My youngest had a dressing table that she didn't want in her room anymore, and I was like, "It's okay. I've got a perfect place for it in the garden." And it is in the garden, and it's peeling now, and it's fabulous. And I've got a table I made from scaffolding boards. That's also in the garden. And my desk used to be a old workbench. That's also in the, so my when you say make a room in the garden, it really is a room
yeah.
in the garden, and there's
Oh, amazing.
collections everywhere. And I've got quite a lot of gallery walls, but more for, I love letters. So we've got a letter wall up the stairs, but we've got a few downstairs with all the mirrors. And
Oh, wow.
it
When you
is
say letter
probably the
walls, what do
polar.
you mean? Do you mean like
Pardon, say that again.
when you say letter walls, what do you mean? Like
Yeah,
written
so just
bold?
initials and
Oh, initials.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so like I picked up some massive signs from Ardingly with an E and a T because my husband's name's Tim, and then the girls are D and B. If I see one that's looking a bit like not too new, it goes on the wall. So I've got, as you walk up the stairs, the wall that faces you, it's all letters. But then downstairs there's like a little there's a little one of those 1960s glass sliding cabinets,
Oh,
the
yeah.
ones that most people just can't get rid of. I've Annie Sloaned it so it matches the wallpaper, and it's full of all my small vases, because when you do shoots and you need to be doing a lot of table settings, you need
Mm.
quite a lot of small vases. So I store them in there. Then there's loads of mirrors on the wall, and there's more letters that I found that I haven't hung yet because I haven't really got hanging things because they've come off a shop front, and it's just like weird and wonderful collections.
Well,
So
sounds
it's
great.
the polar opposite of calm, but it's that wow factor, isn't it? You've got the calm wow factor, and I've got the interesting eclectic wow
Yeah.
factor. And I think I want people to come in my house and think, oh, that's interesting, or I love how you do that. And you want people to be impressed by your house. When you work in interiors, it's kind of expected.
Unfortunately, yeah, but I guess like both can be welcoming, which I think
Mm.
is kind of
Yeah.
what we're trying to get to. Um, but yeah, I love that you're telling us so much about your own home. You seem to love using color. And for those wanting to kind of introduce some color into our homes who maybe not as brave as you are, how can we start with that?
So I have been very sneaky with adding colour into my house. So I bought a massive armoire in and put it in my kitchen. We had like an alcove in our kitchen, and we'd store all the baking stuff in there. And it was kind of a soft grey for many, many years. And then one day, I think Annie Sloan brought out a new colour. It was like a bright blue, and I went, "That's the colour. We're doing that." And I painted it bright blue, and it was fabulous. And then I bought another like a dresser from a secondhand shop, and I quite like to do Annie Sloan kind of textured, layered, kind of peeling paint sort of look
Yeah,
feels, because you can get more depth of color in there.
yeah, that's
And I would just bring in small elements every now and again. So my walls are white in my kitchen,
true.
but there is a massive painting in my kitchen on the chimney breast. It's almost the width of the chimney breast, and I actually painted it with my kids when we moved in,
Oh,
when they
yeah,
were like, one was about 8 months old and one was nearly 3, I think. And we would just get the paints out, like acrylic paints, on this massive canvas, and they would splatter it and spray it and put their hands in. I've got a picture with my youngest where her hands are all over it and it's on her face. And I was never a mum that was going to keep her kids clean. They were always absolutely covered in something. And that painting has so many colours in it that I've picked out subtle colours from there. So I think it's really important. I don't know how you start your designs, but for me, my inspiration comes from one thing, and it might be a colour, but usually it's something with pattern. So my painting is massive. It's got a lot of orange, it's got a lot of greens, got a lot of blues. Um, think in terms of kind of like the Designers Guild bright colours. It's those sorts of colours, but the rest of the room is all white. So when I
yeah,
painted the armoire blue, it didn't take over the space. It didn't make it too impactful. It just flowed quite well. And then the dresser on the other side, it was the same. It was picking out colours, but the blue and the green worked together. And then I've got a really big pine kitchen table. And then the chair, I've got some G-plan chairs. I painted them kind of a dark navy blue, but then each seat pad is a different color. So I've brought in colors, but they go because they all come from the colors in the painting.
yeah.
So I would say start slowly, see how you go, because you would probably hate my kitchen, or you could probably appreciate it, but you wouldn't want to live in it because it's just not your thing. Whereas I could not live it. See, for me, white is just work. White is walking into a studio or a shoot location house that you would normally go into. You'd
You have to
paint it a
start
color. By the end, yeah, by the end of the day, it's back to being white again. You go,
again.
white just feels too much like work. So I quite like to have the color coming in so it doesn't feel like a workspace.
Yeah,
But I
that's
think
amazing.
start with a print or a picture. Maybe you've got a really colorful photo. Maybe you can. I remember doing very early on when I did work experience, I assisted a stylist who did a set at Ideal Home Show, and he took pictures of the sky, and it was really bright blue with clouds in, and he had about six photos in a row next to each other, each of them with this really strikingly blue sky. And it was such a simple thing, but it really impacted the color theme. And then he had a vase that was the same color and a cushion that was the same color. So just bringing in little elements that if it's too much, you can easily replace and send it on to a friend. But just,
Yeah.
yeah, I think people are quite often scared of colours. So I would just say start with one piece. Don't start with painting your furniture. Start with a cushion,
Yeah.
or a tablecloth is great in a kitchen if you want to add impact. I bought a pair of curtains from IKEA in the sale, and they were like cerise pink and white stripes. It was like big fat stripes.
Yeah.
In the summer, that is amazing. Like the whole kitchen
Yeah.
looks fabulous because it's really colourful. But
Mhm.
then come autumn, I'm not going to put that on. I'll put something else on. It's just, you can almost interchangeable colour is a really good
Oh,
idea, I
great
think.
way to change the kind of feel of a room just by simply by a tablecloth. That's a great tip.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Oh no, that's amazing. And I absolutely love that idea of the painting with your kids. That just sounds incredible. I hope people do that. If anyone listening does that, please email me or message me and let me know because I'd love to see that. Um,
yeah.
so I think now, after that question, we are going to move on to something which I think you might probably be expecting. It's a question I'm asked a lot, and it's one that I also have strong feelings about, but it's about trends.
Uh-huh.
And so it's so easy to get caught up in the trends. And I mean, you must know because you're photographing and you're styling for these trends every day in your work. So I just wanted your opinion on this. And should we be incorporating trends into our homes?
So this is a hot topic all the time.
I
And do you
know.
know what? Do you know who brings it up every time? Interior designers.
Yeah.
Um, the thing is, what happens is people think, oh my goodness, there's a new trend. Dulux announced their colour of the year recently,
Mhm.
and it's called, I can't remember now, but it's yellow. And I'm really surprised it's yellow because you've got to be a very brave person to paint a room yellow because yellow is quite a
Oh,
hard colour to live with.
yeah.
It's very stimulating, and don't put it in your kids' rooms, people. It's just too much for them. Um, Trends are there to sell products. So Dulux bringing out a colour of the year is because Dulux wants to sell their new colour, which is yellow. Um, that doesn't mean you have to use it. You don't have to stay on the trend by redecorating your whole space. When people come to an interior designer, they're looking to have a space designed and they're going to live in that space, and they're probably not going to want to redesign it for 5 to 10 years.
Mhm.
Trends are irrelevant. They're absolutely irrelevant. You have to choose what you love. You have to find you have to create a space that feels like home. And chasing trends when it's decorating is not a good idea. As an interior stylist and an interiors writer, I need to be aware of what the trends are. Because if I'm going to be doing a shoot, say Ideal Home book me this week to do a shoot for them, and they want me to do a decorating shoot all about bedrooms. I know that Dulux is the trend at the moment. Dulux colour of the year, that is a hot trend. I'm going to base one of my looks on that. And the reason I know I can do that is because if Dulux is saying this colour is a trend, every shop I go in now is going to have a lot of yellow, because it's not that they just pulled this out of the hat. This happens. They train, or not train, they pull together people from all over the world. They have designers, architects, they have people in fashion, people in food, people from all different walks of life. They'll have pharmacists, they have people come together and they have a conference and they talk about the mood of their nation, and they're from around the world. So it's all different outlooks.
Yeah.
They come together and they say, what is the mood of your where you are at the moment in your industry, in your country? And from that, they have a vibe, and that vibe comes out, and the vibe is translated into a color. So they're picking the yellow, but the yellow is already a feeling that has come out in Zara Home and in Dunelm and everywhere. So
Yeah.
wherever you go now, you will see a little bit of that trend, because that is what all of the shops have been already planning 18 months ago, because
Yeah.
they all pick up the same thing and they're all producing new products, and the new products are in the color that is the trend. So when it comes to using them in your home, they're not suggesting that you need to redecorate. We're just sharing in magazines what's going to be available. It's what we do all the time. And if we don't call it a trend, we could just call it a summer bedroom. It's a trend whether you realize it or not. So I would say don't get hung up on trends, but just be aware that they're there because that's what's available in the shops. And whatever shoot I'm asked to do, I'm going to be aware. I mean, a trend doesn't have to be a color or a wallpaper. Pampas grass clouds, they were everywhere. People had masses of pampas grass in vases. They were hanging them over their kitchen tables. The latest thing is trees inside. People have massive trees, or having absolutely huge vases on a kitchen island with a massive twig that almost touches the ceiling. I think people need to be aware that when you say the word trend, it's not saying you need to follow this tribe.
Mhm.
You know, if someone says, right, yellow fashion is now in, everyone needs to go and buy a yellow jumper, you're not going to do it if you don't like wearing yellow. It's the same for your home. You only do what is right for you. You're just going to not buy the yellow one, you're going to buy the black version. And in your home, you're going to buy the green version or the pink version or whatever is the version that works in your home. People hate trends though. They hate them. I get asked this so often.
I thought you might. But that is exactly the answer I was hoping for, because I feel exactly the same way. I feel like people should do their homes according to how they want to, and that suits their personality. And sometimes there might be a trend that fits in with that, and that's fine. But I think doing up your home and redecorating or even buying accessories is so expensive. And if you're following every single trend and kind of getting caught up in the trends and buying something every time something comes out, your home is going to be a combination of lots of things that maybe don't quite fit together, and you might feel a bit frustrated with it. So that is exactly the answer I was hoping for. I think we
There's
agree.
There's also the element of waste. I really hate waste. Buy
Oh,
once,
yes.
buy well. Don't buy and think, I want this yellow trend to be in my home because I want to be seen as trendy. So I'm going to buy a yellow cushion. And then when I'm finished with it, I'm just going to chuck it into the charity shop. And it's
Yeah,
like, no, don't do that. That is adding to landfill at the end of the day. It is going to be sitting in that shop until they can't sell it, and it'll be sold to the rag trade because it's not on trend anymore. It's
yeah.
like, just be very, I think people are a lot more conscientious of what they buy. I think what is available is a lot more conscientiously made, but sticking to trends just for the sake of trends is very wasteful.
Exactly. Well, I think we agree 100% there. So we're nearing the end of the interview now, but I wanted to ask you, what has been your favorite project that you've worked on so far, and kind of what is the most rewarding part of your work?
So like I said, styling is really about logistics. So I will do maybe 2 or 3 days of prep for one day of shoot. Maybe if I'm doing a week-long shoot, maybe I'll do 5 days of prep for a 5-day shoot. There's a lot of work leading up to it. So you kind of get really, really busy. And then when you get to the bit where you're actually styling, that's the fun bit. So that is always, it's that having an idea in your head. When I teach styling for interiors at UAL, and when I do that, I share a picture of a drawing of how I saw a set looking, and then the after picture, and they're practically the same.
Right.
That's really cool. I
Amazing.
do love that. But it's really funny. I know which is my favorite shot, and it was at a location called the Depository, which is where the very first season of Dragon's Den was filmed. It's a great big warehouse. I
Yeah.
always wanted to live in a warehouse, and I walked into this place and I was like, oh, I love it. I want to live here. It's gorgeous. And there was this like fairground attraction, kind of giant me. It said me in lights, and it was beautiful. And I was shooting party decorations, so it was all pretty colors, but in this really rustic setting. And I remember the feeling of, this shoot is brilliant. I'm shooting great products in a great location, great team. And then we had salt beef sandwiches. I always remember the lunches when it's a good shoot. We had salt beef sandwiches for lunch. Everything about that shoot was absolutely fabulous. So I really liked that one.
Yeah.
I shot in Plymouth in Donna Ida. She's an Australian jeans designer who lives in Plymouth. We shot in her house, it's Langdon Court. We walked in and there was this amazing stained glass window, and she said, yes, this house was inherited by Catherine of Parr. So it's like royalty used to come to this property, and that was a really amazing space to shoot in. There's a lot of locations that we've been to. I am very fortunate that I go into a lot of houses and places that are a little bit out of reach. I've been behind the scenes quite a lot. I was doing a shoot at Café de Paris in London, and I went underneath the road. You go down into the basement, and then you can walk underneath all the buildings to access your
Okay.
van with all your props. That was a bit mad. You get to do lots and lots of really random things.
Yeah.
I've shot a lot of quite well-known people as well, and that's really nice. James Martin made me pizza in his pizza oven just before I left Woman and Home. That's a career highlight.
For sure.
Yeah, might have fangirled him a little
Like,
bit.
such fun. Oh my goodness. And I think let's end on this one. So lastly, how, and I think I'm kind of going to know your answer to this, but how do we know when a space is complete?
um is it ever complete? I don't think my spaces are ever complete.
Yeah.
So what I do is, if I'm shooting, the space is complete when the whatever the inspiration or the hero project is, if that is literally the first thing I see and the first thing I'm looking at, and I want to look at it further, I know the shot is right.
Mhm.
In a space that you're living in, I think it's continuously changing. That might be because of my job and because I see new things all the time. I mean, I don't know about you, how it's so we have not done our living room up. It's been nearly 9 months. We can't make a decision because I keep seeing new wallpapers and I want to use all of them. So making a decision is almost impossible. But I really like the thrill of a chase of collecting things. So I will always be looking for my glasses or my swans or whatever. And I gather them up. And then after a little while, I'm like, or I'll see something. I do whole boot sale antiques shows, everything. I love them.
Oh,
I
wow.
will go to those and I'll spot something and I'll go, okay, teapots is my new thing. I'm going to start collecting teapots. And I gather up all of the old ones and I sell them. And I think, right, I'm going to let these go on to someone new.
Mhm.
Most of the pieces I buy are vintage, so they're worth more when I sell them than I bought them. So I see them as a little investment.
Well, that's
And
well, why not then?
yeah, and also I think people like it that when they can buy a whole collection all in one go. If you can buy 10 swans in one go, why wouldn't you, right?
I know.
But I think I
You
never
really
I
not.
n- yeah, but I never get bored. I'm always like, it's a bit like if you change flowers. If you bring flowers into your home every week, you want fresh flowers every week. It's a bit like that. But I think in my world where I am, I want it to be evolving all the time. I have a tray on my kitchen table and it's got a little jug where I put all my expenses receipts in. And it's got a candle, and there's usually a vase with usually dried flowers or like it's hydrangeas at the moment because of the season. I
Yeah,
change the tray, I change the pots, I change the vases, I change that all the time.
yeah,
And I think it's that continually evolving.
yes.
So I don't feel like a space is, I think you finish when you finish decorating and everything
Mm,
that isn't going to be replaced is done. You've chosen your art and your mirror and the paint and the wallpaper on your walls and the furniture and all of that. But
yeah,
then everything else around it can be interchangeable and move. Like I don't sell a lot of stuff. I've got to admit, maybe once a year I'll sell a collection, but most of the time it just goes into a props cupboard ready for when I need it for a shoot because this is what I do. I tell my husband it's for work. It's
yeah.
not for us. It's propping, not shopping. So I have quite a lot of things tucked away, ready for when I need them for shoots. And then if you decide you want to bring them back out again because you haven't seen them for a year, it's like restyling from your own stuff, isn't it? It's like what shop your wardrobe. It's like shop your prop shop from the garage.
Oh, I know. You're so
I don't
lucky.
know if I've helped anyone with that. I think I might have confused people more than ever.
Well, I think it's kind of you're obviously in a bit more of a better position where you've got all your props. But I think we can do the same in our own homes, like you were saying. We can take
Mm,
things from different rooms, move them around. I find sometimes even if I get a new kind of print or artwork for the house, I'll put it somewhere and then I'll feel like, oh, that needs something else near it. And then I'll kind of start moving things around the house before you know it, I've kind of restyled the whole house. But I feel like I think you're right. Yeah, it's never quite complete, and things change all the time. Our family lives change. The kids all need different things at different ages. And so I feel like once the interior design is done, the styling can just go on forever and ever. And you can constantly just make your home feel a little bit more different. And I think it feels really lovely to kind of keep making those styling changes. I think that's why I love styling so much and why I wanted to kind of speak to you about how we can kind of do this in our own homes because I think it does add that kind of extra depth, that extra kind of level and personality of being able to kind of change things around and bring in kind of things that you really, really love. So
yeah, and I think if you've just gone in and decorated a space for someone and they've been living with it for 3 or 4 years and they're thinking, what do I need to do to kind of zhuzh this up a little bit? You sometimes you don't even realize that you're just getting a little bit used to seeing what's surrounding you, and actually by just moving things around, it makes you re fall in love with your home again. Like
yeah,
literally, like something as simple as if you've got some scuffs on a door frame and you touch it up at the weekend, when you walk in on the Monday morning, you're like, oh, I love that that's not got chips anymore. You
yeah.
just re love your house again. It's such a simple thing.
Oh, that's true. And I think that's an absolutely perfect place to end the podcast interview. Thank you so, so much, Emma. This was really so informative. I feel like everyone's going to get so many good tips and advice out of this episode. So thank you so much for joining us. I really, really appreciate
Oh,
it.
my absolute pleasure. It's been so much fun. I love to talk interiors. So thank you for
Oh,
asking me. I really appreciate it.
likewise. Absolutely likewise. Wow, I hope you enjoyed that episode, everybody. That was absolutely jam packed with some tips and advice from Emma from how to approach children's bedrooms, to adding colour into your own home, to what on earth we should do with trends. There was so much in there. I really hope you can take some of this away and incorporate the advice and the tips into your own home, just to make it feel a little bit more homely and welcoming, and just so you can fall in love with your home again. Thanks so much, Emma Morton-Turner. I hope to see you again on the podcast very soon.